Greetings and welcome to a Prayerful Pause. I'm Nancy Woodworth-Hill, a spiritual director and companion, among other things. Today we continue with my series on forgiveness. This is the 7th part of the series, and in this segment we will explore a variety of situations that seem to block forgiveness. So, let's begin. Apologies and their absence. Apologies and appropriate restitution are not always offered. They do have the capacity to ease the process of dealing with the harm. It's important to know that a wrongdoer has no right to demand forgiveness. This imposes another burden on the person wronged. Also, an apology does not compel forgiveness, earn it, or purchase it. It only seeks to smooth the way for the offended party to give the gift of forgiveness. Apologies should be plain and simple admission of fault that does not include, as L. William Countryman writes, a catalog of extenuating circumstances or self-defense. Countryman also notes that the making of an apology is a way of participating in God's gracious and generous project of redeeming the world through the spread of forgiveness. The absent offender can also be a challenge. We may not know the offender, so a random act of violence or theft, for example, or someone we know does something and then absence themselves from our lives, or they may be deceased. This is particularly challenging when the offense happened when we were children, and only as an adult do we have a fuller understanding of its cost. It's helpful to remember what was covered in the previous segment. A path into forgiveness is to restructure how an incident is held in memory by inviting a demand to become a preference and to seek and satisfy objections. And it is helpful to distinguish forgiveness and reconciliation. Forgiveness takes only one person. Reconciliation takes at least two people. With forgiveness, we let the offense and the offender go or be, clearing our future from the claws of past event or events. The past loses its power to keep us from living here and now. It is in this way that love, which is the only power that can heal and renew and bring reconciliation, makes its way into the world. Another situation is an abusive situation and the repeat offender. In these situations, the wrongdoer may be filled with regret, apologize, and promise not to repeat the offense, yet are unable to actually fulfill their words. What was a single offense becomes a destructive habit, and the entire situation becomes the offense. And the path of forgiveness requires the first step of admitting the truth of the larger picture, followed by a second step of getting out of the situation. Forgiveness will not restore the relationship because it does not change the situation. Such situations must be named and confronted before they can be forgiven. Examples of this are an abusive relationship, sexism, racism, any situation wherein a person's full humanity is denied. The process of forgiveness begins when the situation is recognized, confronted, and paths into greater wholeness are worked on by all. It can also be that the offender is a sacred authority, Now, such include clergy, physicians, therapists, teachers, and mentors, parents and other relatives, our closest friends. These are images of, or should be images of, truth, goodness, God. When such betray their sacred roles and do us harm, we often feel cut off from God too. The path to forgiveness requires us to distinguish, as Countryman writes, between the sacred image and the holy reality it signifies. It isn't God who betrayed us. The ones who did are human, and they often give us a mix of evil and good. Countryman states that these instances will require spiritual growth that will bring us into our own continuing relationship with God. We don't need to confuse any earthly authority with the truth that resides in God alone. The wrongs will assume more human proportions, and the sacred traditions will again become available to us as we pursue our relationship with the holy. Another situation is when forgiveness is not forthcoming. What can be done in a situation where forgiveness is withheld, when one has sought forgiveness with repentance, humility, tact, and openness to make amends? Reconciliation cannot be forced. There is no one-sided reconciliation. The offering of an apology and restitution doesn't oblige anyone to forgive us. It only smooths the way. Countryman suggests that we also work into moving from the past into future possibility by getting a new mind. This new mind comes from seeing things afresh, from a perspective more like that of God, whose nature is love and forgiveness. We have the opportunity to grow and rebuild ourselves without the other person's forgiveness, a process made possible through God's very nature of forgiveness and love. In doing so, we admit that our life doesn't come to a screeching stop while another person works to accept grace and grow in repentance or forgiveness. When another withholds forgiveness, we can forgive this and hold the door open for some future time. So the next in this series is a bit of an overview and some further wisdom.